who are trickling in. We have a nice group already on, and we can see a bunch more coming on. So thank you so much for joining. We'll kick off in just a few seconds once we see the numbers sort of stabilize. As we get going here, I do want to alert you to the Q&A box and the other tools that you can use if you want to say hello. Feel free to do that. I'm sure we've all spent a ton of time on Zoom over the last 2 years, so no shock on how to use those things. And we'll just give it another minute while we see our numbers come in. And I think we can go ahead and get started. So once again, thanks for joining. My name is Wendy Marshall. I'm the president and CEO at the Ocean Institute, and we want to welcome you to the virtual Marine and Environmental Sciences College and Career Fair. This is our second year doing this. And we're going to jump right in with a nice kickoff from a very special friend. This is a national event. We have students signed up from all over the country. So we have a national welcome from our local congressman, but who does work for all of us. Riley, if you could cue up. Oops, and we need the sound.
Hi, everyone. I'm Congressman Mike Levin. I'd like to start by commending all of you for participating in the Marine and Environmental Science College and Career Fair here at the Ocean Institute. And thank you, Wendy Marshall, for inviting me to say a few words. Clearly, you have many paths open to you as college-bound students. By choosing this program, you're showcasing your passion and dedication to ensuring a healthy ocean and a healthy planet. We simply cannot sustain a healthy environment without forward-thinking young minds like yours, whose ideas and solutions we're dependent on to protect the health of our planet for future generations to come. As many of you know, this is an area that I am passionate about. I became an environmental attorney because I wanted to do all I could to alter the course of climate change. I've been honored to continue that work as a member of the Select Committee on the Climate Crisis and the House Natural Resources Committee. I hope some of you will also choose to go into public service to pursue your environmental passions. I understand that this is both an exciting opportunity and a demanding commitment for all of you participating. By choosing to dedicate yourself to a pathway that supports our planet, you give me hope that our world is in good hands. I'm truly grateful for your participation. Thank you for your commitment to ensuring the health of our ocean and the health of our planet.
Sorry, and we're truly grateful that you've joined us today as well. And that was a perfect intro. As you can see from our local congressman, he started with a concern about the environment, moved that into a career, and eventually became a congressman. So that's his story. And that's what today's all about, is learning what our options are. What are you interested in? What are the different pathways from an academic perspective, from a career perspective, but also who are you and what's your story? So as you start to go into these sessions today, I hope you'll go into it with the mindset of being curious, asking questions, and really thinking about yourself as a learner and as a student. Do you want to be as a worker? Do you want to be in an environment, a large school, a small school, private school? There's just so many options out there. So hopefully today you'll not only learn about the institutions that are presenting, and really quickly we'll show you our sponsor screen here, but not only will we learn about the institutions that you'll see today and the exhibitors, but also you'll learn how to learn about a school. So as you approach a new university, what questions should you be asking to sort of figure out if it's the right fit for you? And I'll linger there for a second. Part of finding the right fit is putting yourself out there. So what jobs and volunteering are you doing? You never know where right now, because you never know how that's going to contribute to where you end up. For my part, as president of Ocean Institute, I didn't start here. My early years were everything from paper route to round table pizza to Burger King. And the skills that I acquired in those very early teen jobs actually serve me well now as a leader. But from there, my pathway was actually education. I started as a fourth grade teacher. I've worked with just about every grade level, but also worked on the business side of education. Sort of like Mike Levin, I had some curiosity about, well, how do the textbooks get in front of kids and how do we choose what to teach them? So I immersed myself in educational publishing. I worked for the College Board. I'm sure a lot of you are thinking about AP and SAT and all of that. So I did that for a while, but I always had a passion for the ocean. I minored in it, in oceanography. And most of my volunteer work was centered on, ocean science or ocean participation, from coast keepers to surf rider, the Back Bay Conservancy here in Orange County, California, Catalina Island Conservancy. And all of these things sort of shaped together over time to put me on a direction that eventually got me to the Ocean Institute, which is absolutely my home. And the point there is that all of those little pieces along the way, even when there were hard jobs or weird jobs or different jobs. In fact, I taught online for a while, and that became really handy for us as an organization during the pandemic, when we needed to say, how do we pivot and continue to serve our mission despite the fact that we can't do it in person? And so all of these things have come together. And that's my hope for you today, is that you start putting your pieces together, collecting, again, information about yourself and about these career pathways and educational pathways, and really focus on your story. Before we pivot into our keynote speaker, who we're so excited about, I do want to thank our sponsors. We had a lot of funding that enabled us to provide this day for you at no charge. That includes the Surf Industries Member Association. So this is a group, all of the cool surf brands kind of all together have an association, and they provided the funding and sponsorship for today. We also want to thank our university sponsor, Maritime College at the State University of New York. We also hope, in addition to the sessions, you'll visit the exhibit. So you'll see University of Alaska Southeast, Cal Maritime, Stony Brook College, University of New England, Hawaii Pacific University, University of Miami, Cal Poly Humboldt, and Florida International University. And I can tell you right off the bat, these folks stepped forward, and again, they supported through funding to make sure this day was available to all of you at no cost. So as far as I'm concerned, they're leading the pack on really committing to ocean education and environmental education. And we could not be more thankful and proud to be to have them here. So again, I hope you'll visit their exhibitor booths, the live sessions. Everything will be recorded, and as registered participants, you can view it all later. And again, what you don't see here, we hope you'll take the lessons and go out and continue to explore and learn about all the different options that are available to you. And the biggest piece of that is knowing yourself and knowing who you are and where you thrive, and putting yourselves in positions to continue to learn about yourself. Now, some of this idea of getting out there can be scary. We have a very special keynote speaker, and I'm going to share a tool I would encourage you all to explore. So today we have Alison kicking off. She's the perfect kickoff because she's adventured, she's explored, she teaches us tons about resilience, persistence, creativity, and really being curious. I won't tell her story, but my favorite part is how she went from an observation to really examining something that was important to her. So I'll let her share that in a minute. But as you listen to her, I hope you'll think about your own story. What story will you tell? That's something you're going to be asked to do when you do your college admissions essays, or if you're in an interview process, or if you're in an interview process for a scholarship, is really telling your story. And so what better way to think about that than having this amazing storyteller with us. So with that, I'd like to introduce the phenomenal, inspiring, and amazing Alison Teal. Alison, I'm going to hand it over to you and just absolutely enjoy every minute of what you're about to share.
Aloha. Oh my goodness. Thank you for that wild introduction. Have it no other way. Hello, everyone. Aloha from Hawaii. I'm here in my home sweet treehouse, and I'm excited to dive in and share. Are we all queued up? Am I on?
You're on, and we're just excited.
Yay! Okay, and you can see my visuals up there.
We can see you and your gorgeous pink surfboard. But if you can push the button on your visuals, we can let you know if they're showing. And this is how the sausage is made, right? Sometimes it takes a minute to get things all queued up. So just hang on, those of you who are watching here.
My screen is shared. Let's see. Let me try here again. Let's see if that helps. Does that help?
There we go. That looks great.
How's my coconut Wi-Fi doing? Okay, you can see it.
It's doing pretty good.
All right, so I'm on now, correct?
Yep.
Okay, you seeing some Alison's adventures there?
We sure are. I'm so curious, what does a camel and a surfboard have to do with each other?
Well, you're about to find out. I will dive into Alison's adventures. First, I'm going to show you just a little clip about what I do, and then I hope that what I share here today is just going to catapult you right into your own dream life of adventure. So, well, adventures through education, through all kinds of stuff. So let's dive in. Here we go.
My name is Alison Teal.
Look at all these skeletons.
And my passion is to dive into the unknown.
And there's hot molten lava.
I journey to the remote and exotic corners of this wild world to unlock the greatest mysteries, myths, and legends on Earth.
Aloha, everyone. All right. Well, I am Alison Teal. I'd like to introduce myself. I've been honored with lots of incredible titles like the Female Indiana Jones by Time Magazine, or Real Life Explorer like Dora, or even the Wild Thornberries. And my life has been a wild quest investigating the world's greatest myths and mysteries and legends and fairy tales. And I share them all through my Alison's Adventures film series that I created to educate the kid and explorer in everyone through storytelling and entertainment. And I think that life is just like a quest. It has many challenges, obstacles, and decisions to make along the way. So I hope that my story here today will inspire you to go for your dreams and dive into your passions. See if I can get my clicker here to work. Bear with me. Home sweet treehouse, coconut Wi-Fi here, guys. I live in an off-the-grid Swiss Family Robinson style treehouse here on the beach in Hawaii that my parents and I built by hand over my lifetime. And when I was about 6 years old, the Hawaiian elder of our village came over to offer some fresh fish. And I was so excited to see another human. And I went running up to him and I'm like, guess what? And he says, what? And I said, I'm going to be like Indiana Jones and I'm going to discover the greatest treasure on Earth. And then I paused and I kind of looked at him and I was like, you don't happen to know where that is, do you? And he says, well, of course. I said, you do? And he said, yes. And he looks at me with this wise wisdom. And just, you could tell, his face had just seen a million stories and he had such a story to tell. And I said, oh my gosh, really? He said, I'll show it to you. No way. He said, yes, meet me at the coconut tree as the moon sets, and I will show you the greatest treasure on Earth. And oh my goodness, I was so excited. I told my parents, I got my backpack ready. I spent all day preparing, and I met him at the coconut tree as the moon set. And we walked just a short way across the lava in front of my house. And then he stopped right at the edge of the ocean. And he pointed out at the glistening sea and he said, there it is. I said, And he's like, well, Alison, in Hawaii, our word for water is vai, and our word for wealth is vai. So therefore, our world waters are the greatest treasure on Earth. This moment instilled in me a seed that grew of wanting to protect our world waters. So what I would say to you today to start thinking about right away is, what did you want to be when you were growing up? Dive back into that childlike wonder, and maybe some of it's not quite possible, but what did you say to your mom, when you're little? Mom, I'm going to be this when I grow up. Or did you ever have that mentor that you talked to and it was just so inspiring? So I'd advise you to kind of start thinking about that. Don't think forward, maybe think backward for just a little bit. Now, why do I believe in legends and stories like this? Well, I was raised to believe in stories that were passed on by wise elders and chiefs of communities around the world because Hawaii was just my home base. I was actually raised completely global by my parents, who were adventure photographers, legendary explorers. At about 2 months old, they whisked me away up the highest peak in southern Peru. And since then, life has just been this crazy whirlwind of adventure, and I was homeschooled, I guess more like world schooled, in the most remote and exotic corners of this wild earth. I learned to survive off the land with whatever we could pick or catch. And we trekked through the highest mountains in the world, like Mount Everest, when I was 7. I fell head over heels in love with animals. I made new friends all over the world. Pretty much animals were my best friends. Like my friend Billy here in the Amazon. He was one of my first friends, and he had a twin named Millie. So Billy and Millie. And I also grew a deep love for the ocean. I became a professional soul surfer and a free diver. And you are probably sitting there going, holy taco, this is the dream life. Wow. Well, it may have seemed like the dream life, but can you imagine being stuck in a 6 foot by 6 foot tent with your parents until you're a teenager and beyond? It still happens at times. It was pretty intense, pun intended. And my biggest dream was actually to go to school. And so I worked really, really hard. I did everything I could. I went to every mentor person. I talked to my parents. I dove into my stories because most of the applications at that time, I don't know about now, were all written. So, writing is an amazing tool to tell your stories. So I would say dive in and learn about as much as you can about storytelling and writing, because it will help you throughout life, no matter what you do. I received a scholarship, luckily, to UC Berkeley, and I studied anthropology and archaeology, and then USC Film School, where no one could believe that a girl who'd never really owned a TV could graduate with highest honors. I think many people thought, oh man, you're just a Tarzan child and you'll never learn to read or write. And I believe that if you have a quest to do something and you work really hard and you trust the process and you ask for guidance when you need it, just like any quest, you have to have those mentors and those guides along the way, you can really accomplish anything. And even though I've had this wild life of adventure, I look at school as a blessing. I truly value education. I mean, even Indiana Jones was a professor, right? And I think that one thing I learned is it's not really about the school that you go to, it's about what you do when you're there. And I think you need so many gems of wisdom in your treasure chest, as many as you can possibly handle. So once you get in, go wild. Or even right now, I mean, knowledge is free. Well, there is lots of knowledge that is free. And I think you should take advantage of everything you can when it comes to knowledge. The skills that I learned in college are the tools that I needed to turn a life of adventure into a career. And I literally used every single project that I got to make my dreams come true, to get closer to where I wanted to be. I wanted to create films that educated through entertainment. And so even my 5-minute little thesis film about going to school one day with the Sherpa children at the base of Mount Everest ended up being nominated for an MTV Movie Award and won at Telluride Film Festival and helped launch my career. And moral of the story is of that is, I would say, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And focus and put your all into everything you do, because the story of Rita was actually the story on my application essay to college. And I thought, if this was able to get me into college and help with scholarships, this is a powerful story that, is it landing? Is it being received? Are people loving to learn from these stories and dive into it? And if that answer is a yes, then know that's a good story and you could teach more with it. And so just do your all at everything. If you get a project or an application, don't just do the assignment. Look at it as an opportunity to unlock your next adventure in life. Now, I remember for graduation that I asked every family member and animal that I knew to help me get a camera. And that's all I wanted. And then I literally set off with a passion and my pink surfboard made out of recycled coffee cups. And I started filming Alison's adventures, and I edited everything on my little laptop in the wildest places on earth. I spent 24/7 researching, calling everyone I knew. I just wanted to accomplish my dream. And this is where I would inspire you to ask questions, because if you don't ask, you don't get. And there is more than you think of this global Ohana, this global family that will want to help you out, but you have to ask. So don't be afraid of being judged. Just get in there and ask those questions. It wasn't easy. And I think that in life, there's always going to be people and animals that are very hard to work with. After hours of this little guy trying to take everything I owned, I realized that he just wanted a banana and a smile. And I'm actually not kidding. If you scowl at this kind of monkey, they attack you. So that's a good lesson in life to learn, is that sometimes it just takes a friendly smile and a peace offering. And I try to simply see things from other people's perspective and listen to them. And sometimes listening isn't just hearing, it's observation and it's patience. So for my first Alison's adventures, I set off down the Peruvian coastline. Along the way, had quite a few road bumps and obstacles, but lots of signs that I was on the right track. So look for those signs, because magic is all around us. It's guiding us. And I grew up in cultures that value and believe in the magic and whatever you want to call it, the universe, God, what's out there for you. There is something guiding you on your path. So try to trust in that. On this journey in the middle of nowhere, I happened upon a 3,000-year-old pre-Incan mummy who was buried with all artifacts honoring the ocean. So here I was in the middle of nowhere, and I'd found a treasure, a real treasure, that was signifying the value of our greatest treasure, water and our oceans. I was totally blown away. And so I dove into current scientific ocean research. All right, so let's everybody just take a deep breath. And one more. That second breath comes from the ocean, or at least that's what the researchers say. Between about 50 and 85% of our oxygen comes from the ocean. The ocean is responsible for regulating our global climates throughout the world, and more than half of the world's population is reliant on the ocean for a food source. Wow. Well, it was at that moment that I was called by Discovery Channel to attempt the most challenging survival show in the history of TV. I would be marooned on an island in the middle of the Indian Ocean for almost a month with nothing. I was so excited. I became the first to do Naked and Afraid. First season, they sent a few of us out at the same time, and it was truly coconuts. And I believe it's a true testament to the human spirit. And what I learned from this is that if you dig deep and believe in yourself, you can pretty much accomplish anything you want to do. I'm not saying you got to go survive naked on an island, but sometimes I think we're stronger than we think we are, and we just got to dip our toe out of our comfort zone. I spent hours weaving nets to catch fish, and all I caught was plastic. Come on, flicker. There you go. Research shows that by 2050, there will be more plastic in the ocean than fish. Yikes. That's our most valuable treasure on Earth, and it's getting polluted. So something had to be done. Dun, 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 dun. And I came to learn that I happened to be surviving right near the mysterious trash island that I'd always heard about. You know, you hear about this monstrous mountains of trash in the middle of the ocean, and how's that for magic, right? I mean, right place, right time. And I think that's something very important is you can try to position yourself absolutely in the right place in the right time. And I would advise that. And you can also trust the universe that you will be put in those right places at that right time. Because here I was literally stripped of everything. And I still had magic follow me. And I was able to make a film about Trash Island. Now, this had never been done before. And when I got there, it was completely overwhelming. I mean, it was this apocalyptic Mount Everest of trash. And the Maldives is actually the lowest lying country on Earth, if not one of them. And, you know, as waters rise, this plastic goes in the ocean. And if the oceans die, we die. So what I want to ask of you here today is, what is the legacy that you want to leave? And I think that finding your purpose and being successful comes from diving into the unknown, leading with love and aloha, but especially giving back. My photos and films went so viral that it was actually the catalyst of getting Trash Island cleaned up. And remember that it's not just over there. There's a lot that you can get involved in right in your backyard. And you don't have to dive into plastic conservation. You know, you could have your own cause. And with everything you do, you have a voice. You know, when you write an essay in school, you have a voice. When you go to lunch with a friend, you have a voice. When you post on social media, you have a voice. And what do you want your story to be? And it's not just like, oh, you know, when I graduate college, I'll figure out who I want to be or what it's going to get me choked up or what I want to do. But I think it comes from that every minute of just feeling inside and knowing, because I didn't think or know that I would ever succeed. And when I look back, I'm like, it wasn't about the college education. It wasn't about homeschooling. It wasn't about my parents. It was everything together. So start now. Just be who you are, be you. There's no one else like you. You don't got to be anybody else. You just got to be you. I use my voice through films and photos, and you can use your voice through being a teacher, a mom, a lawyer. Maybe you'll make laws to help protect our planet. Maybe you'll teach the most important things about saving the oceans, and that will inspire students. Maybe as a mom, you can put your money into buying a reusable bottle for your child and saving money than having to buy plastic water bottles every week. That's just one example in the conservation world, but there's so many things that you can do with your specific passion. You don't have to dive into someone else's passion to make a change in this world. And I'm just so excited that I've been able to be instrumental in changing multiple environmental laws. And one person I think can change the world. Paddling through the river here in California was the catalyst in banning the bag in California. And then I came back home to Hawaii after my travels, and I couldn't wait to share with my Hawaiian elder of the community that I'd been out there protecting the greatest treasure on earth. And I think it's so important that you go back and you thank your elders and you thank your mentors and you let them know that, you know, even if things don't work out exactly how you think they are, hindsight is 20/20, and maybe it will in the future. So make sure when people help you, you give them lots of thanks and aloha. And when I got back there, he was older and more frail, and I hadn't even been gone that long, but, you know, he summoned me to the sea and we dove in, and he pointed out that the coral was, and my remote is, dead. You know, and it turns out that we've lost about 50% of our reef systems in Hawaii since 2011. So I dove in once again to making a film to help protect our reefs and talk about how one of the low-hanging fruit is toxic sunscreens. And so recently a law passed with the help of my film and many other people on board to ban toxic sunscreens in Hawaii. And as the law passed, so did my Hawaiian elder. And before he died, he told me, please just go and share my story far and wide to anyone you can. Not even his story, to share the story of the oceans, the story of what's important in life, so that the future generations can have fish. And I just thought that was really powerful, and it's inspired me to dive into what I want to do. And I hope that me being here today can inspire you to dive into your dreams and soak up as much wisdom from as many mentors or friends or parents out there that you can, but also stay true to your vision. Just take those little jewels and stick them in your treasure chest, but stay true to your vision. Don't be afraid to walk to the beat of your own coconut. I never in a million years thought that I, a girl who was homeschooled in the wilds, would be here inspiring people how to take their next steps in education. So think of life as an adventure. Think of school as an adventure. Make it fun. I give you a passport of permission here today to breathe out the stress, because I remember it was stressful, and breathe in that oxygen from the ocean, and breathe in the excitement about your future and all the possibilities of fulfilling your quest and hopefully making your own waves of change along the way to make this world a better place. I'm really honored to be here today. If you want to check out my films, they're all online for free for everyone to check out on my website, Alison's Adventures. I've dove into TikTok lately. Never thought I'd be saying this, but it's really fun every day to share life at home, sweet treehouse, sustainability, lots about accomplishing your dreams and believing in that magic. And speaking of which, Ripley's Believe It or Not, I just published Alison's Adventures for the whole family to enjoy. So if you want to dive deeper into all my adventures that I've talked about here today and more, it's great education through entertainment. And I hope that you all hop on board and join me in a pink passion power for life, even you boys out there. So love you all from the islands, and wondering if you want to dive into any questions.
So we have the Q&A box that we can use. If there's any questions for Alison, please use that, and we'll kind of relay those. We can also ask them through the Whova app. So if you happen to be on there, you can ask your questions through there, and Riley, maybe you can help us get those questions out. But, I have a question. So, one of the things about the college admission process, and you touched on it, is it's extremely stressful. So those of you that are kind of going through mining for schools and, maybe haven't gotten to the point where you're actually applying, but it can be quite stressful. And, I'm curious how you made that transition as somebody who's homeschooled, who wouldn't have had access to the counselors, the coaching. How did you find your way?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. I'm going to take a little sip of yummy tea. I always answer questions maybe in a different way than people are expecting, because I've had a different life than I guess most expect, even though it was normal to me. And what I would say is start absolutely minute. So think back, and this is what I'm talking about, a college application essay, or because I think that's mostly, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's kind of what it is nowadays, is you get a prompt, right? And you have to express through that couple pages what might dictate, your future of education. And I remember, I will never forget being at home, sweet treehouse, like in the hammock, just wanting to rip my hair out because I just couldn't figure out what to do. And I'm trying to remember, one mentor had told me, and I think I kind of knew this from just growing up, as you go from the tiny to the big. And so what I tried to do personally is think of that one moment that changed my life, that one little thing. And I'll never forget sitting with this. I wanted a friend and I wanted to go to school. That was like my big dream, right? I had everything else in the world that maybe people would think was so magical and so awesome, and this real life Disneyland. And I just wanted textbooks and a yellow school bus and a teacher and a desk and a locker. Oh gosh. And so I remember this time at the base of Mount Everest where I met this little Sherpa girl, and she told me I could go to school with her. And so we snuck out in the morning, the big sneak out, right? Because my parents they're not going to let me go to school. We trekked over a 17,000 foot pass. and it was crazy cold and I thought we were going to die. And we got to go to school for the day. And that's how they go to school every day. Can you imagine? I mean, sometimes it's hard for us to go get our tea and coffee and just make it to class. And so I looked back at that because she was one of my first friends and my first experience of doing what my dream was. And so the beginning of my essay literally started like the firelight danced on the walls. The yak dung firelight danced on the walls of the old tea house. And Rita said to me, "Do you want to go to school tomorrow?" And I think that, I get choked up thinking about it because she just inspired me so much. And so look back to that one little moment. Is it an item you have? Is it a gold coin that someone gave you? Think of that one little thing, whether it's a possession, a moment, something somebody told you, and start there and write that down, and then get broader with that as to what you want to write. So what I ended up doing is talking about how my quest to school that day with her was basically a symbol of my life of adventure, right? I mean, it was like getting from point A to point B in my dreams and all this wildness happening along the way. And my life literally had been this homeless version of homeschooling around the world. And, everyone I met along the way were my teachers. And I think that that's important to really find just that. I don't want to say don't do this because there's so many ways to live a life in, but I think it's just like, well, this is what I want to be, try to think the story. So to sum it up in a very simple sentence, what is the story that you want to tell? And start very, very, very small. Don't try to just encompass the entire thing. That one little starting point, the beginning, middle, and end, and what is the moral you learned from that? And I think that is what just jumps out, because when you sit there and read, like, whoa, and it doesn't have to be, I know you're probably thinking, well, I don't have any crazy adventures like that. It doesn't matter. What if it's about this piece of chapstick that, you got a chapstick and you loved it so much and the smell reminded you of your grandpa and he was, I don't know, I just get on that inspiration mode. And I think that will really help. That would be my advice. It's the story you tell. Because we're all unique, right? We're all unique. Like, I wanted your story. You might want my story. So don't think that your story isn't valuable, because to someone else, it might be kind of mind-blowing.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and we have a ton of questions, so we're going to kind of rapid fire.
I get excited.
But I want to piggyback on what you said. So, a few things for those of you that are kind of taking stock of, well, what are the nuggets? Again, having those mentors. So who are the people that you're turning to, whether it's a peer or a teacher, and you'd mentioned in your presentation, keeping in touch with these people. I've done the same thing. My two biggest mentors, one was the president of Orange Coast College here in California. I went there as a sophomore. I didn't find my right fit my first year of college. The second year, went to Orange Coast College and actually stumbled upon this person who continues to be a guide to me. And then my second mentor is another person who is part of my teacher credential program. So keeping in touch with them and building your own fan club. We're not all Alison Teal, but we all have people who care about us and want to see us be successful. And again, I want to underscore a couple other things. She had mentioned asking questions and putting yourself out there. Ask people to help you, and so just like you're doing today with these questions. So we'll get through some of those. But most important, with Alison's really, clear, authentic essays that she was speaking about is, being yourself. You have to understand these folks are probably reading 110,000 essays and really being who you are. I think what you can take from what Alison shared is you do not need, and if you have one, that's great, but you don't need a consultant. You don't have to pay all of this money to try to gain access to, people who will tell you what to say. It's your story and you can just say it your way. So wanted to just kind of linger there for a minute. Lots of different things here. And I'm going to make one more point. It is the essay. The other things that they'll look at is your coursework. So I see Bruno asks a question here. What can I take in middle or high school before going to college to be a marine biologist? That is the other part of the story you tell, not just the essay. If you're not a good writer and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm toast, your coursework, your volunteerism, and if you are able to, find a job, those things also tell your story. But, what kind of classes, I mean, you had a different scenario there. And so you'll probably hear more, Bruno, in some of the college courses, but I mean, do you have some thoughts there, Allison?
I do, but maybe in a different way, because I also noticed that somebody said, did you take standardized tests?
Yeah, I was going to ask about that.
Well, and I think that's the same thing, is that you don't have to be perfect at everything. I think I don't want to say I failed. It was SATs back when I was doing an ACTs. It's probably still the same thing. I don't want to say I failed at them, but I pretty much failed at them. I could not, I mean, I'd never taken a test, let alone a standardized test, and have time. I was in there like, la, 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 I was trying to make everything perfect. I did not do well on them. But I did work really, really, really hard to get a GPA. My last couple of years of high school, I was able to enter here in Hawaii. And I really wanted to go to school. So I'm like, Mom, I'm going in. And I did end up having a GPA. But see, I love to answer this in a bigger picture, is that I loved learning. I couldn't wait to do all these. I just loved diving into it. And so I think I ended up with like a 4.5 or 6 or something GPA, because it was so wild. But that's not to say like bragging rights on my end. It's like SATs couldn't even barely make anything. And then, GPA, and then essay unique. So I just think that you have to it's again, putting yourself in that other person's perspective. If you're a person sitting there, and I do this when I accept people to help me for my films or for jobs around the world, you're looking at these people that we're all still human, right? And it's like, if they look at something and they're like, oh my gosh, this essay is amazing. I see the voice, I see the story. It's literally about a penny they found on the side of on the sidewalk, and they made a whole amazing story and related it to their life, and how, value isn't the biggest money, or I'm making this up, but it's just, I think that it's always about your story. So I really wouldn't stress on that, like one element, whether it's a class or, because everybody has their different strengths. And if that school doesn't accept you, then that's not the right place to be. I think we're all going for that name or that higher up. But honestly, I got lucky and got into some of the best, schools for what I was doing. And there were kids that didn't do well at all. And it just wasn't their place. And they were incredibly smart. I think you just have to find what's right for you. It's what you make of it. And this day and age, school isn't everything. So gather that education, make it for you. Don't make it about the school or about the clout. Make it your own story.
And for those of you that are paying attention to standardized tests these days, there is a lot of a movement towards test blind or test optional. So if that's not your jam, that may be something that you don't need to worry about. It really is the coursework and the patterns. So we have about 7 minutes left for questions and lots of things. So I'm going to kind of rapid fire through all of these. Do you like being called Indiana Jones?
I'm honored that I would be compared to such an amazing character I think of it in terms of film and the character. I don't think of that as like a real life. It's like fictional, and those films are, some of what we all grew up like, oh my gosh, he uncovers treasures and he's a professor. And what I've realized most lately, get choked up again, is that it's important maybe sometimes for other people to understand who you are by kind of putting you in a little box of an example. But at the end of the day, I'm Alison, and that's kind of who I'm proud at this point to be, because I've really worked hard, and I think it's just really important to be you. So I'm honored, but I'm also glad to be me.
So, and kind of related, so this adventurous lifestyle, that you kind of stumbled into, what were the biggest takeaways in how education extended your purpose and journey in the sciences? And how do you think it would have differed had an education not been possible?
So, okay, for me, I went into education that was about filmmaking, even though I think that I learned 70% of it from my dad falling off a mountain on his old camera. I think it's like, if you got it, you got it. And if you love it, you love it. And that's your thing. Did I learn a lot through school? Absolutely. And I think those are insanely important tools. Like, I seriously value education. Some people are like, well, how do I just live a life of adventure? I'm like, go to school and learn, learn those important parts. It doesn't have to be, there's so many different schools of life, right? There's lots of ways that you can learn. But what I would say in terms of marine science, for me, it's what I see. So traveling in all these places growing up and then seeing them all flooded by plastic, it was like, of course I need to make a difference. But that's my story. So there might be something that you go to school and learn in a textbook or at your Ocean Institute where somebody has an experience there and that changes their life, but you have to be passionate about it. Like, I didn't set off to save the oceans. I grew up composting. I grew up, loving our reefs and snorkeling around. It's a lifestyle to me, and I want to protect the amazing playground that we have that's called this world. So it was an innate thing. It wasn't like, I'm going to be a marine scientist and biologist. I wanted to be a storyteller. So I think it depends on how you want to use your voice. But what I would say in terms of school is to really just dive in to everything you can learn, and don't make it about where you're going. Do not just go to that educational place that feels right in your heart when you tour it, when you talk to it. It's kind of like a relationship in life, right? I mean, you can marry Brad Pitt, but if it's not the right guy for you, then it's not right. And you don't want to be in that canoe. So go with what feels right in your heart, put your all into it, do those assignments, even in middle school, in high school, start doing the things that matter to you, because don't just do it to impress someone, because that's going to get you off on the wrong track anyway. You want to have what you're passionate about.
So, and I
I'll
think,
marry Brad Pitt too, if you know what I'm saying.
yeah, and I think you're right. Sometimes you do have to pivot. It's not the right fit. It's a very strong and brave thing to say, this isn't the place I thought it was going to be for me, and I need to make a change. And I certainly did that. I went to a UC school, then a community college, and back to UC. I was ready again. So sometimes we do make pivots that we didn't expect. We only have about 2 minutes left, and I just, I'm reading the questions, I'm peeling them out. We'll try to answer them on Whova too. Maybe we can do some of that. I had the pleasure of reading Alison's books, Alice, and I'm not doing a shameless plug, but it is so good. A lot of these questions about her inspiration, the challenges, some of the science type things are in there if you're curious about that. But one last thing maybe you can touch on briefly in our only 2 minutes to go. Financial stresses or what were some of the hardships or the hardest part? Being successful puts you in a place that, can be kind of scary, and maybe you can just touch on that as a teaser. Yeah. So whether it's financial or other pieces, what were the most stressful things about being you?
Right. And what you asked me about tools too, like I taught myself editing. I went to one of the best film schools and I taught myself editing. So yes, learn those tools. You got to save up and get those cameras. You got to learn your Photoshops and your editing tools. And that's a lot of what school can teach you if you dive into the right classes. But yeah, oh man, financial, my parents always, I remember when I graduated college, I was like, oh God, I don't have any money. Like, what am I going to do? I want to go around the world and film this series, but I got coconuts and that's about it. And this camera and the surfboard, and how am I going to afford this? What am I going to do? And they're like, oh, well, you just have to tap into your trust fund. And I'm like, what? I have a trust fund after all this surviving in the wild? What are you talking about? And they're like, no, not that kind of trust fund. It's the same kind that everybody has. You have to trust that the funds will be there. And if you're on the right path and you're working hard, it will come. And I think if you look back right now on your life, like, was there ever a time when you're obviously here watching me today and you've gone through so many hard times, but here we are, we're still kicking, we're still alive, we're still moving forward. So you have to trust that those hard times, you're going to flow through them and know that the funds and the support and everything will be there for you if you're in integrity and you're doing the right thing. And most of all, I think, what I leave you with is that nature is the biggest teacher we have out there. I think if you want to learn something, I'm not saying that school's not important. It's hugely important. And I went to it in the middle of Los Angeles. I was like, oh my gosh, I need to surf. I got to get back in the ocean, but I just think that whenever I need to find an answer and really have a teacher of my soul, I go out in the ocean and I go up a mountain and I climb a tree and I try to tap back into that kind of universal school that we have, that textbook, because everything, I remember the magical chief of the firewalkers in Fiji once told me, I said, well, how do you guys do it? You don't have money. You're here, you're on this island, there's coconuts and there's no cars, there's nothing. I didn't say it exactly like this, but I was curious. They're so happy, right? How do they do it? And he said, well, everything we need has been provided for us before we even get into this world. And I was like, huh? And he's like, the trees, the cassava, the tapioca, the fish, it's all here. It's all here. It's all here for us. And sometimes we kind of miss that for years and years and years and years and years and years and years, everything has been here to provide us with the answers. And the answers are in the clouds for them, or in the water, or in the tides. And if they're worried about when to plant a crop or when to fish, like, they go to nature for those answers. And I know this might be confusing right now because you're like, how does that help me do my college essay? Go dive in, go to the beach. Really, a lot of people, you're not going to go to the beach. I did all my homework. I did everything at the beach. There's no shame in getting that bikini on and going and sitting out. If that's where you get inspiration, that's okay. Go sit under that tree, get into nature. It's your biggest teacher. Or call me. Oh God, don't call. I have a million calls. I'm happy to help. I'm on all my social channels. Probably too much. But I love to inspire our future generations. So if you have more questions, you can come to my Alison's Adventures TikTok or Instagrams, or just dive in and I'd be happy.
Put all the links. Thank you, Alison. We'll put all of the links in Whova. So, those who are wanting to continue the conversation, that will all be there. But, I think, and also just from the financial perspective, that is a huge thing that we think about a lot when, looking for college, how are we going to pay for it? There's resources out there. We're not going to cover that, but ask those questions in your sessions today, and don't lose sight of the fact important investment in yourself. It will, when you find your path and you invest in it, it will really pay off. And I do think the nature effect, we can't all get to the beach. We may be, just kind of in a field or someplace, but being somewhere, the bigger point, why these great epiphanies and this, self-awareness kind of kicks in, is that we're stripped from all the other noise, the social media, the counselors, the teachers, the friends, and you're just in yourself, and bringing it back to where we started, back to knowing yourself, your story, and where you want to go. And sometimes you need to find quiet time and space to do that. So Alison, I want to thank you on behalf of Ocean Institute and our sponsors and the students and the people who are going to watch the recording. Thank you so much for sharing your adventures, your story, inspiring us. And to all of you who've joined this conference today on a Saturday or recording later, thank you so much, and go create your adventure. We hope that you'll find lots of little nuggets to build your story, and we can't wait to see who you turn out to be. So thank you so much.
Excited. Aloha, everyone.
And Riley, do you want to make a statement about where they go next? You can go to the Whova app, and that'll tell you the different sessions that are popping up. And I think that's all we need to cover there. So we'll see you in your next sessions.